Hi everyone, my name is McKenna and welcome to my first knitting podcast. In these videos, I plan to talk about knitting, spinning, and any other fun things I tend to get up to. So a little about me, since this is the first time we're meeting. I live in Portland, Oregon with my husband, Cameron. I'm a knitter, a brand new spinner, a reader, a sourdough baker, and a cat mom to 3 little beans, which 2 of them you can actually see behind me. This one up here is Stella. This one down here is Cisco, and you can't see the 3rd one, but her name is Eliza. I've always loved watching knitting podcasts and knit with chats during my free time or doing chores around our apartment, and I've really wanted to do one for a long time. I'm so excited that you're here, so let's get into it. Oh, Stella. These cats are probably gonna be making a lot of little cameos. I'm currently filming on my husband's desk in our living room, so don't be surprised if you see them pretty often. Okay, so first let's get into my current whips. I do have quite a few actually. There are a lot of smaller projects. I just casted off a pretty big sweater project, so I kind of needed that instant gratification of quick knits. So let's get into it. This one loves attention, so I won't be surprised if she pops up very often. Okay, so my most recent cast on actually is the Traveler Cowl by Andrea Mowry, and this is what she looks like right now. I did have to mark the right side because they look so similar that I was getting myself confused, but I'm knitting it in this really beautiful like purpley teal yarn that I purchased for Yarn's Sake, which is a local yarn store in Portland, Oregon, and it is absolutely lovely. It is by the Fiber Co, and it's their Silken Jewels Road to China series. I believe the fiber content is like super luxurious. Like I touched it and I could not buy it essentially. Let's see, the fiber content is 65% alpaca, 15% silk, 10% camel, and 10% cashmere. So it is like literally the softest thing I've ever touched. I actually just casted this on today and it is super quick to memorize and so soft. I can't wait. This is just gonna be so like next to skin soft, and I love this color. It's gonna be great. So my next whip that I'm currently working on is actually the Yarn Cozy Light by Natalie from Knitty Natty. And I've kind of been working on this for a while now. I think I actually cast on this first cozy way back in October on my way home from Rhinebeck. So it's kind of been in the whip graveyard for a while, but I really got in this mood of like clearing out my needles and finishing these small projects. So I recently picked it back up. And this is what the yarn looks like. It is actually scrap yarn from a Halloween yarn sock set that I got from the Cozy Cauldron Fiber Co. And it's called Headless Horseman. So here's the yarn. It's like this really pretty dark purple that has variegated light purple and grays and blues and oranges, and it's absolutely gorgeous. I love the socks that I made out of this. But I had so much extra that I decided to make these yarn cozies. So this is how much I have right now. I'm knitting them on a US1. I'm using Magic Loop for this because it's just easier that way. I'm doing the plain and simple body, which is essentially like a knit 3 purl 1. It gives it just enough negative ease to hug that yarn cake and kind of keep everything nice and tidy in there. And it's just a really clean design. And I have 2 like remnants of mini skeins that came with this sock set that are like the same orange color that's in here and a black. So I'm planning to make like a coordinating pair, one that has the orange contrasting I-cord at the top and one that has a black contrasting I-cord at the top. The black one will be a little harder to see, but I think it'll be nice to have the 2 cozies be different, especially if I'm alternating skeins in a project. It'd be easier to tell them apart. So it's really, really fun and it's super easy. Like I can knock one of these out in like a day or 2 if I'm like really obsessed with it and it's all I'm working on. And the pattern is super well written and there's different varieties that you can do with the bodies. Like there's a faux cable option that I've done before that's really, really fun and looks really, really cute. So highly recommend if you want a cute little sweater for your yarn cakes. This next whip has been withering in the whip graveyard for even longer than my last one. I want to say for at least a year, if not longer, and that's not even when I bought the yarn. I didn't cast this on right away. But it's called the Helical Twins by Karen Fernandez. It's actually a pattern that I purchased from Beautiful Knitters back when I was visiting in London with my husband. We went there for our 1 year anniversary, wedding anniversary, and it was such an amazing trip. And of course, I had to like scope out at least one yarn store while I was there, because how could you not? The ladies at Beautiful Knitter were so nice, and I was kind of eyeballing some things because I didn't want to leave with a bunch of yarn that I didn't have any plans for, because that's kind of difficult to have all this endless yarn and have nothing planned for it, because it just kind of sits there for a long time taking up space. So I found this sample they had of these cute little hand warmers, and they actually had the yarn for it, and it was made out of Cardiff cashmere, which is a yarn that I've been wanting to try forever. And we all know cashmere is a little expensive, so this was like the perfect project to buy just like 2 little balls of it as a little treat to myself. I also was able to try a new technique with this pattern as well. I've never done helical knitting, so it was really nice to have a project that was kind of a double whammy. Fighting with my yarn. Oh my goodness, okay.
A few moments later.
So here's the first one. The first one I do have finished. My ends are not woven in, obviously, but essentially it's just a garter stitch little hand warmer, and you do 1 stripe of each color, and you helical knit all the way around, so you get those like seamless stripes. There's no like jogging. These ones are actually for my husband Cameron. He chose the colors. I also have 2 balls that are in like a brown and a more of a taupey color for myself that I haven't even touched yet. I was really into knitting these for a while, and then just kind of like got interested by other projects. Here's the one that I'm currently working on. I just did the thumb increases, so I'm about to split for the thumb and then just knit for the rest of the fingers. So it's literally so close. There's no reason why I should have just abandoned this the way that I did. But I do hope to jump on this back pretty soon, because I need these needles back, and I really want this lovely project bag back. It has mushrooms on it, and I'm obsessed with it, and I want to use it for my current projects. So I'm mostly finishing this because Cameron wants his hand warmers for the fall, but I also just really want this project back in rotation. My last current work in progress is actually a couple vanilla socks for my friend Lacey. She absolutely loves the handmade socks that I make for her. She is obsessed with them, and she recently asked me to make her more very, very nicely. She is very knit-worthy. She takes care of all the socks I give her, and she just loves them so much. It always makes me so happy to see how happy she gets when I make them for her. Because she loves these socks so much, I decided to make like a coordinating set. I'm doing 2 pairs of socks, and they both have the same like color theme going on. They're just kind of like the inverse of each other. So the first pair I made her are these ones. Again, these are not blocked or the ends have not been woven in yet. I decided I was just gonna do them all at the same time. But it's this really pretty like blue speckled yarn. It has a bunch of greens and yellows and pinks. And then I'm doing the contrast is in like this deeper kind of turquoisey color. So I did some stripes up at the cuff because I thought that was a cute little accent. And then contrasting heel and contrasting toe. And I think these are so cute. These are probably my favorite ones that I've made for her. Personally, a lot of the ones I've made for her are self-striping. She doesn't have any, just plain ones. So I thought this would be a good excuse to give her some plain ones. And then the coordinating pair for that is just essentially the same light blue speckled yarn and the like variegated or tonal turquoise yarn, but inversed. So here's the one that I have finished. Here's like this really pretty variegated teal yarn, and then I'm using that blue speckled yarn for a contrasting heel and a contrasting toe. These are so fun. I'm also still trying to nail down her sock size a little bit, so I'm kind of playing around with the stitch count. I believe for the blue ones I did a 60 because the 64 was just a little too big for her. So I went down to 60 for these, and I think I'm doing 56 for these ones, so I'm curious to see which ones fit her better. I also normally do a 2x2 cuff, knit 2, purl 2, but I've noticed that they stretch out a lot and it doesn't really like around your calf and like keep your socks up. So I'm also experimenting with a 1x1 rib cuff So I'm curious to see if she likes these better and if she finds that they stay up a little bit better. I think they will though. And if she really likes them, I kind of might just convert to a 1x1 cuff from now on. And I'm actually keeping both of these socks in a little like quilted Halloween bag that I bought. It is from This Handmade Life, and this is like literally the cutest bag I've ever seen. I know it's not Halloween, I know it's July, but it's so cute that I use it year round because how could you not? I'm also knitting these on DPNs. I kind of go in between DPNs and doing magic loop on a 40-inch US 1. It kind of depends. Sometimes I feel like I have a better gauge on DPNs. I am a pretty loose knitter. I'm a continental knitter. So usually if I do socks, my gauge is about like 7.5 stitches per inch. It's not bad. It's a pretty like average gauge, I feel like, for socks, but I know like technically for socks you want that gauge to be a lot smaller so they last longer. So I try to kind of find different ways to like tighten up that gauge a little bit, and I definitely think for whatever reason on DPNs I do have a little bit neater and a little bit tighter of a gauge. It kind of just depends on how I'm feeling though in the moment, if I'm gonna do magic loop or if I'm gonna do DPNs. Water break. Ooh. We love a good little spicy water. I'm pretty good at drinking water. I get pretty bad headaches. I try to stay really hydrated to avoid my headaches and my migraines, but lately I've just been really tired of like not tasting anything. So I found these, and because there's 0 sugar and there's no like additives really in it, it doesn't dehydrate me and it tastes like something. So this has been like my obsession drink for the last like week and a half. So let's move on to my finished objects. The first one I want to talk about is actually currently what I'm wearing. This is the Tulsta Tank by Rebecca Clow, or the Crayabea on YouTube and Instagram. I literally love her. Lately she's been putting out all these designs I've just been absolutely obsessed with, so there's quite a backlog of plans that I have for all of her designs. But this is her Tulsta tee, which is basically just a really nice basic raglan tee, but the one thing I love about Rebecca's designs is that she gives you so many options in her patterns to customize and modify and kind of make it your own. In this pattern, not only do you get a 4-ply option or a fingering weight option, which is the one that I knit, she also has a DK weight. She has a modifications page that has like eyelets, stripes, lengthening the sleeves, all these different options. And she also has an option for you to put like long sleeves on to get just a really nice staple raglan sweater. So I knit this in Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino in their Purple Elephant, and I love this color. It's just a beautiful muted light purple that I feel like looks really nice with my skin tone, and I love that this is just a little basic tee. I think I finished this towards the beginning and end of spring, so I'm really excited to wear this. I love this, and I plan to make a million more of them. She also recently came out with a Tulsta Tank, and I have some Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino in Dusty Artichoke that I really want to knit with for that pattern. Specifically the square neck option, or no, sorry, the vest option. I have to wear a bra, and most of my bras have thicker straps, so I really liked my tank tops and my t-shirts to cover my straps, which is why I'm leaning towards the vest option. It's not really a vest, it just has that typical shape of a vest, and I love it. I also really like the square neck version, and I might actually knit that one as well, but make the straps potentially a little bit wider to cover my bra strap. We'll have to see. But I believe that one also comes with quite a few options for modifications as well. My most recent finished object is actually the Sheep Camp by Jennifer Berg. This is a knit along I'm actually doing with my local yarn store, Starlight Knitting Society. And the people who are running this knit along have their own podcast called Sibling Energy, and it's with Mackenzie and Tim. They are so funny. They're not actually related, but they really give off like sibling energy, hence the name of the podcast. So they're the ones hosting this knit along. Technically, I think this one started at the end of June, and it's going till I think beginning to middle of September. I'm one of those people where if I get hooked on a project, that's like all I want to knit on, and this has a colorwork yoke that just like chef's kiss, had my entire attention, and I just like was eating it up. Absolutely eating it up. And even when I got to stockinette on the sleeves and the body, at that point it was just so mindless that it became my TB knitting. My husband and I are currently watching Dexter, so we would just throw that on after dinner and I would just be going, absolutely going the whole time. So I did mine in Haley Bailey, which is a Pacific Northwest local dyer. And I used eucalyptus in her DK base, which is this like light green color. And then my contrasting color is oak moss, which it's like a creamy green color. Like on its own, it looks like a cream, but when I held it up against the eucalyptus, it has like a greenish tint to it, and I loved that. I love like a good duochrome moment, so it was just like everything I wanted. It is not blocked yet, but I did weave in my ends, which is a feat in my personal opinion. I'm really excited to block it and kind of see what the final measurements look like and what it looks like on my body. The thing that I've heard a lot about, Mackenzie mentioned this during Knit Night as well as in her own podcast, that in this pattern specifically by Jennifer Berg, the yoke depth is very deep, which tends to leave a lot of like open space underneath the underarm. And knowing that, I kind of was flirting with ideas on what I wanted to do to make sure this fit the way that I wanted it to. Some people were mentioning like taking out a repeat, which is like taking out one of these triangles right here and kind of bringing up the yoke that way. And I thought about that, but I really enjoyed like how the length of the color work in the yoke. So what I decided to do is there's a portion on here, there's a portion on here where there's like a line of just the main color. So what I did is I separated for sleeves there, and then I did the last bit of color work onto the sleeves and onto the body. So it did shorten the yoke a good inch, but I didn't have to take out any of the color work, which I absolutely loved. And I really love that this kind of goes onto the sleeve a little bit. I really, really enjoyed that. So I think it's gonna fit like just perfectly. I also love this rolled hem up here. Usually I am a ribbed collar girly. I don't usually do rolled collars, but this is really cute. I really like the vibe. And I love the fact that like if I wear like a white or black t-shirt underneath this, it'll kind of peek out a little bit, give a little layered moment. Yeah, I'm like super obsessed with this. So she's done early. She's done like a month and a half early. But you know, I can't help it. This was like popcorn knitting for me. It held my attention the whole time. I also was knitting on a lot of small gauge projects, a lot of like fingering weight, a lot of sport weight. So this DK weight and the fact that it was on such a large gauge with the US 7 needles, it flew. It felt like I was flying, which was so nice. It was definitely what I needed, so. I can't wait to wear this. All right, my next finished object is actually a yarn cozy, the same pattern that I mentioned earlier and the same yarn that I mentioned earlier. I have so much left over of that yarn after knitting a pair of socks that I'm kind of thinking of making a little set for myself. Because when you buy the pattern from Natalie, you have the option of a 100-gram skein pattern or the mini pattern, which is essentially like a 50-gram option and then like a mini skein option for like a 10-gram mini skein. So I'm kind of hoping to make a little set. So here's my first one that I finished. This is the 100-gram skein option. Hold on, it's a little dark. There we go. Lovely. I did the orange as the contrast color. And I did the plain body, which is just the knit 3 purl 1 ribbing. And I think this is literally so cute. This is such a good way where if you love like a skein of sock yarn so much after you knit a pair of socks and you have some left and you don't want to get rid of it because you really love the color, this is such a good way to use up that scrap and like still really enjoy the yarn itself. There was another cozy that I made that was Pumpkin Patch, also by Cozy Cauldron Fiber Co. And it was so cute. I had used it to knit a Musselburgh hat and I had so much left over because I held it double with a with Magpie Fibers Plume. Their cashmere lace weight base, that's scrumptious, love it. That I loved it so much I ended up making a yarn cozy out of it because I wanted to celebrate that yarn more and I wanted to see it all the time. And I use my cozies all the time. So this is the 100-gram option, like I said before. I'm planning to make another 100-gram cozy, which is the one that I showed earlier in the whip section. But I also am thinking about making either another 50-gram or a mini option. I think it's gonna kind of depend on how much yarn I have after the second 100-gram cozy. Sorry about that, my camera stopped recording. Anyway, I think I'm leaning towards knitting the 50 gram option because I do find that I use 50 gram skeins more often than 10 gram mini skeins. I think that has a lot to do with the fact that a lot of sport weight yarn and like lace weight yarn come in 50 gram to 25 grams. And I'm not really knitting a lot of like sock sets anymore, which is where those 10 gram mini skeins usually come from in my stash. We'll see. We'll see and play it by ear on how much yarn I have left. So maybe I'll make a 50 and a 10. We'll see. Who knows? But yeah, definitely recommend these if you have leftover yarn that you're obsessed with and you just want to do something else with it that you'll use every day. Highly recommend this pattern. Natalie did such a great job with these. She also has like beer can cozies. She has soda can cozies, bottle cozies. She's currently making a like e-reader cozy that I'm like super excited to try because I love my Paperwhite and I would love to have a little knit sleeve on it. I think that'd be so cute. My last finished object is probably the one I'm most excited about. This was my like, wow, I'm a knitter. Like I'm actually a knitter project. And I feel like everyone has one of those where it's a pattern that they look at on Ravelry and they're just like, man, when I knit that, when I finally am good enough at knitting and I knit that, like I'm gonna be a real knitter. And this one was mine. This is the Eingred sweater by Petite Knit. This is the coziest, largest, oversized sweater I think I've ever made, and I am obsessed with it. And it was so much easier than I thought it was. I definitely, like, this is one of those projects where you look at it on Ravelry and you're like, wow, that looks so complicated with all the different textures and like the cross motif that's in there. You're like, wow, that looks so complicated. That's gonna be so difficult. One day I was just decided, you know what, I really want this. I want to knit this. I think it'll be fun. And I bought the yarn for it, which is Drops Puna in gray and then Drops Kid Silk Mohair, I think in either regular gray or dark gray. I'm not sure. I bought the yarn for it and I just casted it on and I was like, why did I wait so long to knit this? Why did I build this up in my head as so difficult? But it really wasn't. It was lovely to knit on, and the fact that the motif changes so often kind of kept me interested. Like I was constantly like, oh, when I started to get tired of a portion, like it would change and I would do like an eyelet, or then I would do the 2x2 rib, or then the moss stitch, or then this cross section. It was absolutely lovely. I do think my gauge is a bit off. I am a loose knitter. I bought the yarn, the amount of yarn that I thought I would need for it, and I have so much extra. And she is a little bit big, not gonna lie. It's definitely like, she's not a bit oversized, she's oversized. Not to the point where I think it looks bad, I think it looks intentional. It looks like that cozy sweater you'd wear in the middle of winter with like leggings and some boots, or like hiking boots, something like that. Sit by a fire, reading a book with your hot chocolate. Like this is the sweater I would wear for that, and I think it fits that vibe, but I definitely think my gauge was off. I think I normally have a larger gauge than most patterns because I'm a loose knitter. Not terribly so, but like enough to where I usually have to go down a needle or two in patterns. I think I just committed to this one because my swatch lied to me. Shocker. I was like, oh, perfect, it's on it. And I should have known because alpaca grows so much after blocking. And this is a large, thick sweater. So the weight of it after blocking is gonna make it grow more than you think it will. And I should have accounted for that. But you know, you live and you learn. I still love it. I'm still gonna wear it. It's just gonna give that oversized cozy vibe, and that's fine with me. The next thing I want to talk about is kind of my next plans or projects that I really want to cast on soon. So the first one I want to talk about is the Traveler's Shawl. I know I'm knitting the Traveler's Cowl right now, but I love the texture of this pattern, and it's so easy to memorize, and it's just lovely and squishy, and I also just love like everything Andrea Mowry comes out with for the most part. So I want to do the Traveler's Shawl, and I actually was able to snag one of the bundles that La Bien-Aimée released when the Traveler's Shawl was released to everybody, and I love the colors. I think it's going to be gorgeous. Here's what I got. Oh, it's so lovely. So this is going to be the main color. This is Felix, which is a 75% Falkland Merino and a 25% Corriedale. There's like a ton of yardage in this skein, like crazy. 710 yards in this one skein. Lobby Anime, why are you selling such beefy skeins? I mean, I'm not complaining. I'm definitely not complaining, but. And I wanna say this is a fingering weight, maybe edging on sport, but I'm not, I love this. This is so nice. And this will be held with this beautiful skein of yarn. This is Kumo in the colorway Dusk, which is the name of the bundle. This is 74% baby Surrey alpaca and 26% mulberry silk. It's so soft and it's so beautiful. I want to drown in this yarn. It's so nice. I love it so much. This is also my first time ever using anything for Lobby Anime, and I'm really, really excited to kind of knit this up and see how I like these yarns. Lobby Anime I know is a fan favorite and produces gorgeous colors and gorgeous bases. So I would love to see how much I like knitting with these and how much I love the actual end product itself to see if maybe I'll become a Lobby Anime fan. I wanted to knit the larger size for this pattern, but I think the bundle only gives you enough yarn for size 1. So I'm gonna plan on knitting size 1, but if I have a bunch of leftover yarn, maybe I'll feel a little spicy and we'll try to knit size 2, but it's probably gonna end up being size 1. Size 1 is still a beautiful size and it wraps around you nice. So it'll probably be fine. Size 2, I'm not really a shawl knitter, or I don't know if I'm a shawl knitter. I've only knit one other shawl before in the past, and I don't really wear it, but I think it's mostly because I forget about it all the time. And I do think that this color scheme and the texture of the traveler shawl I will wear, especially going into fall and winter. And I think if I knit the size 2, it might be too much going on and I probably won't wear it because there's just so much material. So I probably will just stick with the size 1 and see how I'm feeling. Maybe I'll become a shawl knitter. Maybe Andrea Mowry will convert me to a shawl knitter and a shawl wearer. Who knows? The next project that I really want to cast on, it's kind of been in my arsenal for the last couple months, is the Pressed Flowers cardigan by Amy Christophers in Spin Cycle. So when I first moved to Portland, Oregon, I immediately was like, oh, what are my local yarn stores? Are there any local yarn stores near me? Where I originally lived, they had like one, and I didn't have a car, and it was a pain to get to, so I never went, which was super sad. So of course, now that we moved here into Portland, we immediately got a car because the West Coast, everything is a little bit more spread out, so we kind of needed at least a car to get around and grocery shopping. I found Starlight Knitting Society, which is an amazing local yarn store in Portland, Oregon. I love it so much. They host a weekly knit night that I go to when I can, when I'm free, and everyone is so sweet, so kind, and so welcoming. The first time I went there, I spied the Pressed Flowers cardigan in the corner next to their Spin Cycle, and I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. And my husband immediately was like, you should cast that on. And I was like, really? He's not a knitter. By the way, he's not crafty in any way at all. It stresses him out. But he was like, wow, that is so cool. And I think he would absolutely wear that all of the time. You should buy that yarn and you should cast that on and like, you should knit that. So I was like, say less. Was I on a yarn ban? Absolutely. Did I immediately break that yarn ban to get Spin Cycle to knit the Pressed Flowers cardigan? Absolutely I did. Absolutely I did. So here's what I got. I got the suggested yarn that she used in her pattern. So for my main color, I am using Wilder by Spin Cycle. It is a sport weight and it's 200 yards. I got the light gray option. I literally took everything they had because I think they only had 5 skeins and I needed 6. So I bought the 5 that they had and I ended up finding another skein at a different local yarn store that I went to later and bought that one. So I love this light gray color. It's a little blown out right now, but it's so gorgeous. I also love the texture of this yarn. And my contrast color is going to be Straw Flowers, and they're dyed in the wool base. I love this yarn so much, and I love them together. I feel like the contrast is gonna be gorgeous. I also just love the color scheme of Straw Flowers. It's essentially like a deep blue and then a cerulean and then a light blue. There's a little bit of like a gray blue, and then you get these pops of like a very like lemony yellow, and there's a coral, and there's like a brick red in there. Like, I think it's gorgeous. I think it's gonna look so nice in that cardigan. I also love mosaic knitting, and I think this is just gonna be a project that's gonna keep me engaged the whole way through. So I'm really, really excited to cast this on and then to wear it. So it's kind of a process knit and a product knit. I'm excited for the process of knitting it, but I'm also really excited for the end product. So it's like a match made in heaven. So super excited to cast this one on. My next cast on is the Something Cozy sweater by Shayna Bilo. And this was a pattern that kind of surprised me. It had been mentioned in Natalie's podcast. It was one of her cast-ons and projects that she was like, if I were to be in a fire, if my place of living caught on fire and I only had time to grab one singular sweater, what would it be? And it was a Something Cozy. And she's like, and I would knit a million of them. If I ever lost this sweater, I would knit it again. And that was enough for me to be like, interesting. This is essentially like a cozy sweatshirt, a fluffy sweatshirt that you would throw on when you get home from work. I didn't know what yarn I wanted to use for it, but it was a pattern that kind of lived in the back of my head for a while. Last year when I went to Rhinebeck, not only did I go to the festival for Rhinebeck, I also went to Cake Palooza that was held the day before Rhinebeck from a local dyer in the area. And let me tell you, that festival was crazy, but it was so nice. Everyone there was so sweet. Everyone was so excited to be there, and they were so excited that it was my first time being there. And Cake Palooza is run based on time blocks. So essentially you purchase a ticket for a certain time block, and only those people can go in during that time block. So it kind of helps things from getting overcrowded and overwhelming. And Chelsea Luxe yarn was there, and that's actually the yarn used in the pattern. And in line to get into the festival, there was a lady I was talking to, and she was like, oh my god, have you ever used Chelsea Luxe yarns? And I told her I hadn't. She's like, oh my gosh, you'll love it. Like, she has these really beautiful colors and these really cool textured bases. Like, you should definitely take a look. And I did, and I actually fell in love with some yarn there that my dad had purchased for me as my birthday present to knit up the Something Cozy. So this is what I got. This is Sea Glass in her Luxe DK base. It's like a very light, like sea foam green color that has these beautiful stripes and speckles in it of like browns and oranges, yellows, turquoises. And it's like it's a boucle base, so it's kind of got that really cool texture to it. And then I'm gonna hold it together with the Sea Glass Luxe mohair, which doesn't have as much of that green, but a lot more of that like beautiful maroony purple and the browns, which I think will add like a really nice color to the green. I just think this is gonna be like the comfiest thing I've ever knit, so I'm super excited to knit this up. Now I wanna talk about spinning. So I am a baby spinner, like brand spanking new spinner. I started off on a spindle and quickly realized it wasn't for me. And then I was worried that, okay, maybe spinning isn't my jam, but I really wanted to do it. And I was like, you know, if spinning wasn't my jam, me not doing well on a spindle would turn me off. And it turned me off from spindles, but not from spinning. So I was kind of sitting on buying a wheel for a while because I was really concerned I wasn't gonna like it. And spinning wheels are an investment. They are expensive, especially depending on how well made they are. They are expensive, and it's kind of hard to invest in something like that if you don't know if you're gonna like it. Well, I moved to the Pacific Northwest and kind of started attending different knit nights, and I went to like a little spinning get-together meetup in the park, and I was surrounded by these lovely spinners spinning while I was knitting, and I was kind of chit-chatting with them, talking about the wheels they got and how much they like spinning, and I was just so inspired that I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna do it. So I started like searching through Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, different buy-sell groups online, and was just searching for a wheel that wasn't crazy expensive, but was gonna give me what I needed and a good baseline to start learning. There are so many scams. I definitely had a lot of scammers message me and post things. I'm glad I saw through those and didn't lose out on money and a wheel. But I eventually found my wheel that I have purchased, which is a 30-year-old Magicraft Susie. It was being sold on Facebook Marketplace by literally the absolute sweetest elderly woman. She had it for at least 32 years because she bought it around the time that her daughter was born, or her daughter was young. And who knows if she bought it new or if she bought it used as well. So I just know for a fact that it's at least 32 years old. And the only reason why she was selling it is because she had suffered an injury that caused her to have her foot amputated, one of her feet amputated. And my Magicraft Susie is a double treadle, and she just couldn't, she didn't have the strength to only do like one foot on the double treadle. So she held on to it for a while, and then she decided, you know what, like, it's just collecting dust, like I should sell this to someone who's gonna really love it. So she listed it on Facebook Marketplace. Within the hour, I messaged her and I was like, hey, I would love to buy this wheel. I think it was listed originally for $500, and I was talking to her back and forth about how I'm a baby spinner, brand new spinner, never touched a wheel really before except for like one time I tested them at Rhinebeck, and I'm on a budget and I want something that's gonna be a really good first tool for me. And she essentially looked at me and was like, you know what? I want this wheel to go to someone who's an excited beginner and who's like going to actually appreciate this wheel and isn't gonna just try to flip it or is gonna go in their collection of a million spinning wheels that they have and like not even get used. So she ended up selling it to me for only $400. And I could have dropped dead. I was so excited. So immediately the next day after I got off work, my husband and I drove out to her house. We met and we talked, and I purchased a spinning wheel from her. Now, granted, the spinning wheel definitely had some scratches, some nicks, was definitely a well-loved wheel, but it looked almost brand new. It spun like a dream. Like you couldn't even tell it was 30 years old. So when I brought it home, I went to the store and I bought some Murphy's wood soap, which is like an oil-based soap, and I got some natural beeswax wood conditioner that has orange oil in it, and I just like cleaned it. I went in with water and like wiped it all down, got the dust out, got any like gross dried stuff on there, went in there with the soap, and then I went in there with the wax, polished her up, made her look beautiful. I bought a new drive band, I got some fiber, and I was like, we're doing this thing. And she looks brand new. Like looking at her now after cleaning it up, you could not tell me that that wheel is 30 years old. So I am literally so excited to have this wheel and for it to be my first wheel. I love it so much. Like this wheel, I feel like found me, and I feel like we are such a perfect fit, and I don't think I'm ever gonna get rid of it or ever want another wheel. Now I'm saying that as someone who's brand new, has only been spinning on it for like maybe a week and a half, but I'm actually obsessed. So of course, the first thing that I did was I just did some regular like manufactured yarn to kind of get the feel of the take up and spinning and treadling and all those things. I did that for like an hour and immediately was like, okay, I want fiber, I want to spin fiber. So I spun fiber. Back in October, when I went to Rhinebeck, I did take a spindle class and loved it at the time, or loved the idea of it. So I had fiber from that class left over, as well as I bought fiber at Rhinebeck to use on my spindle that I never ended up using because I got home from Rhinebeck and hated spindling. So I grabbed the fiber that I bought at Rhinebeck and tried to spin it. And this is the fiber. It was 8.6 ounces of gray Gotland that I bought from a farmer that was there selling the fiber from their sheep. And I didn't realize that apparently Gotland is really hard to spin. That's what a lot of the people were telling me in a Discord that I'm in for knitters and spinners. And granted, in the beginning, it was definitely hard, but I thought that was more on me because I was doing it too early and didn't know how to draft. So I think this one is my first bobbin. So you can definitely see that there is some like thick and thin. There's definitely some very large, thick pieces underneath all of this. That was when I first started, but you can definitely tell towards the end, I started to get it. I started to be more consistent. And then I spun the other half, which is this one, which I feel like definitely looks way more consistent. And I was spinning this and just immediately was obsessed. So I'm glad that I didn't let my dislike for spindling deter me from spinning, because I love it. I love it so much. It's all I want to do. It occupies my brain all day, every day. So what I ended up doing was I split the 8.6 ounces of the Gotland into two 4.3 ounces, and I just like kind of free spun it. I didn't split it in any certain way. It was basically gray, light gray, and then it had some like dark, almost black through it. So it kind of created like this really cool barber pulling effect in the singles. I do plan to ply these together. I'm just waiting on the plying flyer and a jumbo bobbin from a fiber yarn spinning wheel store in Washington called Northwest Yarns. They had to get it from the manufacturer, and they're gonna ship it out to me once they get it so I can ply this together. I think it's gonna be super fun. It's definitely gonna be inconsistent, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's terrible for my first spin. Like, I'm like pretty proud of this. You should have seen what I was spinning on my spindle. It was awful. Granted, spinning on the spindle probably did help me get a better idea on drafting, which is why these are so much better. But I think the mechanics of spindling, I just wasn't getting it, whereas the mechanics of the wheel came a lot easier to me. So, super excited about this. I can't wait to ply it and show you guys. My next like work in progress for spinning is this little itty bitty baby bobbin. This is from Alexandra, The Art of Yarn. This is actually one of the fibers that I had left over from my spindle class back in October. I did try to use a little bit of this to practice on the spindle post class when I got home, which obviously didn't go well. So I only had like 0.9 ounces of this left. So essentially what I did is I just spun the singles with it, kind of just splitting as I went, because it's pretty much like a tonal wool. It was just like different shades of purple and no particular like process of dyeing. So it's kind of just everywhere. And I spun it end to end all the way through. And then what I did is I did a plying bracelet because I didn't think it was gonna be that much yarn, and it was that much yarn because I did actually spin it pretty thin, which I'm pretty proud of myself. And it's pretty consistent. So I did the plying bracelet, which didn't go too well. It ended up kind of making my yarn towards the end fuzzy because it was like rubbing on itself off my wrist. So I probably won't do that ever again. But you know, I'm a beginner, I'm learning, so now we know. I'll probably use the plying bracelet more for like the end of bobbins when I have a small amount left and I want to use up everything. But I won't ever use it again for just straight plying the whole thing because that was not a good choice. But here's what it looks like again. It's a 2-ply. Here's like a little sample of the yarn. Here, let me like, there we go. Here's like the sample of the yarn. I think it looks great for basically my first time plying. So I'm letting it rest right now, and then I'm going to skein it up and wash it, and we'll see what it looks like to get the final like yardage and weight. But I don't think that's terrible for my second spin ever. Like, not gonna lie, I think I'm like kind of crushing it. So for finished objects regarding to spinning, they're like half my finished objects or like a quarter of my finished objects. This yarn is actually fiber and singles that was left with the wheel when I bought it. It was essentially just singles that were left on the bobbin that she either forgot to take off or just didn't really want to use it anymore. So the first one I want to show you is made out of Cheviot, and it is this lovely white plied yarn. I have no idea how it was spun. It came to me already plied on the bobbin. So I skeined it up and I washed it, I thwacked it, and it's still a little wet, it's still drying, but it is beautiful and it's soft. I wanna say this is probably a light fingering to a fingering. I need to purchase a WPI tool and like the spinner's control card so I have better idea of what I'm working with. I started counting every time I was wrapping it on my nitty dotty, and then it just became too much and I lost track, so I have no idea the yardage on this. but it is lovely and I can't wait for it to be dry and for me to skein it up and to potentially use it in a project. I do want to take a picture of it skeined up and send it to her on Facebook Messenger so she can see her work. I'm sure she'll be sad that she didn't think to take it off the bobbin, but I love it. And it definitely it got me used to like the mechanics of skeining something off of a bobbin onto a niddy noddy. So it was kind of like piecemeal exposure to different processes of spinning. So it kind of was nice. The next one is same thing. This is fiber that was left on the bobbin with the wheel, but it was 2 separate bobbins and it needed to be plied and then taken off, washed, thwacked and everything. This fiber is super interesting. It's this really beautiful, like very lightweight brown yarn, and it's made out of musk ox. I don't really know much about the animal of musk ox, but I feel like it's producing a very similar fiber to like a yak, but not quite as soft. She definitely spun it very, very thinly on each bobbin, and then I went and I plied them together, which was super fun to get the feeling of plying because it helped me get used to the take up of my wheel and like the action of like plying / drafting. And this is definitely a lace weight. Like she is thin. It is very thin yarn, and I like really like it actually. I did actually count every time I wrapped it around my niddy noddy. So it's about 278 yards. I don't know the weight yet. I haven't skeined it up to weigh it, but I definitely think this is hitting about a lace weight. And I think what I might end up doing is probably just knitting these together into like a little like Sophie scarf or a little like neck scarf, maybe like a hair wrap or something. But these are really lovely, and even though I didn't myself really spin them, they did introduce me to different aspects of spinning. So it was kind of nice to get that little intro and kind of expose me to different parts of spinning. So I love these. Okay, so let's talk about acquisitions. So I have no new yarn, unfortunately. I'm kind of on a self-imposed yarn ban because I have so much yarn and I really want to knit through my stash. I'm one of those people where I buy yarn with a project in mind. I don't just buy yarn to buy yarn. I used to do that, and then I was left with these weird amounts of yarn that I couldn't really use for anything. So now every time that I buy yarn, I make sure I have a specific project in mind for that yarn. That being said, I have a backlog of projects that I want to knit up. So I'm on a yarn ban. We'll see how long that lasts because I am going to flock in August and I probably will end up buying something. But as of right now, I am on a yarn ban. However, I am not on a fiber ban. And I really want to get my hands on a lot of different breeds to get a feeling of each breed and what I really like and kind of expose myself to different breeds. So I started shopping at Northwest Yarns, which is in Washington State, because they sell yarn, they sell spinning wheels, spinning wheel accessories and tools, as well as fiber, like breed specific fiber. So I went and I bought 3 bumps of different breeds of sheep, and I did about 4 ounces of each. This one is like an oatmeal color of a Blueface Leicester or a BFL. I got 4 ounces of this and it is so soft. I love it. BFL is one of the more hardier wools, is from what I've heard. Don't take my word for it. I'm learning. I don't know things yet. So this is just based off of what I've heard from other spinners or knitters, or just like from my feeling of the fiber. But this is lovely. I can't wait to spin with this. I think my hope, actually I don't have anything in mind for this. As of right now, I don't think I am an experienced enough spinner to buy fiber with the intention of a project, because that could potentially be a load of fiber, and I'm not consistent enough in my spinning yet to do that. So right now I'm just buying amounts of fiber to kind of expose myself to different breeds and kind of get a feeling for everything, and to practice my consistency with different like staple lengths and stuff. So this is an oatmeal BFL that I got from Northwest Yarns. This is Rambouillet top that I purchased also from Northwest Yarns. And this is so lofty. Like, I kind of love it, and I haven't even really spun it with anything yet. And it's like a cloud. It's so lofty and so soft. Like, I think I'm gonna be obsessed with Rambouillet. if all rambouillet is like this. So we'll have to see, but I'm so excited. And then the last bump of fiber that I got is actually Kent Romney. It's also combed top. And when I first saw these together in the packaging, I was like, these look exactly the same. But then I touched them and they are not the same. Romney, or this Romney specifically, is definitely more dense and it's not quite as pillowy and not quite as soft. But I've heard a lot of good things about Romney, and I've heard a lot of good things about Romney for beginners as well as Rambouillet for beginners. So I'm really excited to spin these. I definitely think out of the three, the one that I'm the most excited about is probably the Rambouillet, just based off of the way that it feels. So I'll keep you posted on my spinning. Right now I'm kind of just waiting to free up a bobbin. So as soon as I get that Plying Flyer and the jumbo bobbin to get the Gotland off my bobbins, this is gonna be my next step. Now let's talk a little bit about life stuff. You know, you guys don't really know a lot about me, so I thought I would take this section to kind of introduce myself a little bit more, talk about my life. So my husband and I actually just moved to Portland, Oregon like 2.5 months ago from Boston, Massachusetts. Wild move, I know. Coast to coast, stressful move, will not lie. What we ended up doing was we basically tried to get rid of as much stuff as we could. We got rid of all of our furniture, packed up all of our stuff in a super small shipping container and shipped it across country. And then we got on a plane with our 3 cats and flew from Boston to Portland. The most exhausting experience of my life. But I am actually obsessed with the Pacific Northwest and I love Portland so much. The people that I've met here are great. They're so sweet, they're so kind, and the vibe is just vibing. Like, I don't think I've ever felt at home in a city before, and I love it here. Originally, my husband and I are actually from Indiana. We both grew up in Indiana our whole lives. We met each other at college, got engaged, and then we moved 14 hours to Boston. We got married in Boston. We were in Boston for 3 years, and then Boston got a wee bit too expensive. So we moved then across the country to Portland. So as you can tell, we only know how to do big moves, but I think we both really love this area and we're really hoping that this is just gonna be like it. Like, we're gonna settle here and we're gonna be West Coasters, so we'll have to see. But yeah, we just moved in about 2.5 months ago. I think we finally feel settled in our apartment. Everything is unpacked for the most part. Everything has kind of found its place. I started a new job in the area at a hospital. I'm a medical laboratory scientist, so I work in the lab at hospitals. Essentially, like, anytime you go to a doctor's office to get like blood work or like swabbed for an infection or anything, I'm the one in the lab that does that testing. Previously in Boston, I was a microbiologist, so I grew all of the bacteria for your different like respiratory infections or wound infections or any of that kind of stuff. So I played with bacteria and grew bacteria and told your doctor what to treat it with. And then I moved to Portland and now I'm in a new department. I work in flow cytometry, which essentially is they use lasers to help diagnose cancer. That's like the easiest way to explain it. It's super interesting. I'm learning so many new things and I love that. I love being able to learn new things in a field that I feel like I've been in for a while. So it's really, really exciting. The only other like big thing in my life is that I'm starting this podcast. I've been wanting to start this podcast for a really long time. I was worried no one would watch it and I didn't think I would have time, and I sometimes have a hard time keeping up with content creation. I do have an Instagram and I do try to be consistent with it, but I would tend to fall off on and off from it. So I was kind of worried about it, but I was talking with a friend at work and she was like, you know what, you should just do it. Like, I think you would be really good at it and I think you should just do it. And I was like, you know what? You're right, I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna commit and I'm gonna do it. So here we are. I hope to make these videos every week and talk to you guys and share what's going on with my knitting and my spinning. So I hope you guys will enjoy that and you'll stick around. Thank you guys so much for stopping at my little crafty corner of YouTube. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe to stay up to date on when I release these podcast videos, and maybe I'll feel a little spicy and release some like knit and chats or tutorials or some shorts and stuff like that. So I hope you stick around and I hope to see you next time. Thanks for watching, bye.